All right, I'm back with more of Tom Brady. Is that right? I think that's right. Yeah, that's right. I think.
I mean, here's Richard Dawkins making this point in his book, River Out of Eden, A Darwinian View of Life. He says, in a universe of electrons and selfish genes, blind physical forces and genetic replication, some people are going to get hurt, other people are going to get lucky, and you won't find any rhyme or reason in it, listen, nor any justice. The universe that we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but pitiless indifference.
Correct. I mean, that seems obviously true. The universe doesn't care. Physics doesn't care if you die. A photon doesn't love you. A black hole is not going to be your buddy. If you find yourself in the middle of the void, space is not going to take pity on you. Death has no desire to spare you. It has no malice either. It just is. At the raw physical level, this is what we experience day to day. Bad things happen to good people. Because of the nature of the universe, because of physics, because of chemistry, because of biology. People get burned, people get crushed, people get injured with acid, people starve, and so on, endlessly. But you'll notice one thing he hasn't mentioned. People. In a society of people, what's it like? You've lived in one, you tell me. Sure, some people get hurt, sure, some people get lucky, but is there no justice? Ever? I would say there is. We make it happen. We see, for example, someone who's made the lives of others immeasurably better suddenly have their life become immeasurably worse, and we help them. Very often. We see someone who's made the lives of others immeasurably worse, and we, well, depends where you're at the very least get rid of them from society. Put them in jail, execute them. Sometimes worse things, think about that what you will. Is there no purpose? No, there's purpose. Humans have purposes. In fact, an awful lot of what the human mind does is generating and fulfilling purpose. As shown by the religious obsession with purpose, we have quite the fixation on it. And humans create purposes for themselves constantly. Not given to them by the nature of physics, not whispered to them by the spirits of the breeze, not dictated by the stars, but invented by our own will, promoted by our own experience, encouraged by our interaction with other people, or just our own interest or whatever. We don't have someone else's purpose. We don't have God's purpose. We have our purpose. And that's far more important. Why would I value someone else's purpose for me more than my own purpose for me? If someone else values something, they can make that their purpose. And that's fine. And I can have my own. Moving on. In human society, is there no evil and no good? Well, you might characterize it that way, but I don't think most people would. People have values. People have things they hold as important. And most people, I would say, have a lot of those in common. You know, you and I have very different worldviews. We disagree fundamentally on a lot of pretty critical things. But even so, we share a lot of the same values. Some of it's cultural, right? I'm familiar with your website. I think generally we agree with things like freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of religion, I think. You agree with? At least between humans, right? Until God gets into the picture and tosses everybody he doesn't like into hell. But that's a different issue. These are, at least to an extent, cultural. And you and I think you're Canadian, I'm Canadian. You're probably from Ontario or something, so I probably disagree with you on a whole bunch of stuff because I'm from Alberta, but we'll also have a lot of very similar culture-based opinions. But then there's going to be stuff that's much more universal. Basic things like health, family, safety, property, to an extent, at least to the extent that it supports your survival and relative comfort. You know, there's a lot of these that we could come up with if we talked about it, but the point is, the vast majority of people share these kind of values. And what do people mean, not in a religious sense, just in a general secular sense? When people say the word good or evil, what are they trying to express? When they say the word good, they're trying to talk about something that preserves or creates something that they value. Something that moves the needle closer to the world being as people would want it to be. And when they say evil, they mean something that moves the world away from that. For some reason, religious people often seem to think that this is just arbitrary, that you just made it up for no reason, not based on anything about your human nature, but just out of the blue. It's just a pointless preference, it means nothing, there's no history to it, there's no reasoning for it, and as much as you want to believe that that's all values and morality are unless someone else dictates them to you, in which case suddenly they're objectively correct and matter for some reason, that's just not the case. And you would understand that if you examined why you hold your own values, why you have your own morality. You would understand that whether you believe it's objective or subjective, you are doing it for the exact same reasons we are, and you feel like it's important just like we do. And you're basing your conclusions about it on your own reasoning based on your own values, just like we are. Anyway, and then among humans, is there only pitiless indifference? Well, no. You're not indifferent, I'm not indifferent. We care about people, or at least you care about your people, I don't know about the rest. And that's the entire basis of morality. Whether you realize it or not, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about it. As Dawkins says, what he's talking about is at bottom. There's no justice, no design, no purpose, no evil, nothing but pitiless indifference. But of course, humans design things. Humans have purposes for things. Humans see good and evil. Humans are not indifferent. What he's pointing out here is about as fucking revelatory as saying, at bottom, a computer is just a bunch of electrical charges in some metal circuitry. At bottom, there's no Microsoft Windows, or Microsoft Word, or Google, or YouTube, or Internet. There's nothing but meaningless electrical flow. And then you point to it and go, aha, see? I told you software is bullshit. I don't understand how someone can miss the point that badly.
Or how about Michael Ruse, philosopher? Morality is just a matter of emotions, like liking ice cream and sex and hating toothache and marking student papers.
Alright, so I went to read the article, and I think it's a pretty weird and actually unhelpful way of putting the point across, but I get what he's trying to say. I don't like how he phrases things in a way that plays right into the religious characterization of non-theistic morality as being just arbitrary taste of no more importance than liking ice cream. But of course that's not what he's trying to say. He puts morality on a much higher plane in human psychology than that. Basically, the overall point of the article is that human morality is not this universal, objective, theistic morality, but that even if we recognize that fact, that doesn't mean we're just going to stop behaving in accordance with certain relatively universal moral rules, specifically the ones that come from our biology that our brains scream at us to obey. That to disregard, your brain has to be really messed up either by circumstances or by some malfunction in the brain. So basically, he's just saying some of what I said in this video and the previous video, but it's much more surface level, and I don't like some of the way he phrased things. It's just kind of a blah article, whatever. By the way, why do I feel like I'm dealing with Kent Hovind right now? Listening to you reciting cherry-picked quotes from books and articles? You'd think we'd be past this in current year, but apparently not. Why do you think that pointing out that some guy said a thing is an argument?
He was a professor.
Oh. Right, of course. My bad. Well, then everything he says must be true. Boy, if that's all it takes for you to believe something, your worldview must be crazy.
But it is and has to be a funny kind of emotion. It has to pretend that it is not that at all.
Yeah, I already looked at the article. Let's get to the point.
Now that is an honest atheist.
Oh yeah, I think he's being honest about his opinion. Of course, the reason I think he's being honest about his opinion is I just assume good faith. The reason you think he's being honest about his opinion is because you think he disagrees with other atheists, and you think he just gave the atheist game away and played into your hands. And if I can misinterpret what this guy says in a way that's convenient for me, but I can't do that with everyone else, then he's the honest one and everyone else is a liar. Tim, you're so transparent, it's painful. By the way, I'm a professor. I own a lab coat. And everything you say is wrong. So, pwned.
By subjective, he means morality is determined by the subject, the individual, the person.
Yeah, fine. I mean, I just had this whole conversation on morality, and I thought there would be more arguments from you coming, and instead you're just like, hey, this guy wrote an article in The Guardian over a decade ago. Let me explain to you what this one quote I picked out of it means. It's honestly hard to overstate how much I do not care what Michael Ruse means by anything. I'm not responding to a video by him. I'm responding to you. His ideas don't really matter, yours do.
And so on this view, morality, like he says, is merely likes and dislikes, nothing more.
Yeah, and I both agree and disagree with him. I agree with him in the same sense as what we were talking about with Richard Dawkins, where at bottom, yes, sure, that's what it is. But that disregards everything I talked about, especially in the latter half of the previous video, about how these things actually come about and how they actually relate to human nature itself. And I actually think that he kind of disagrees that it's that simple as well. I mean, obviously, the part of the article that you're talking about makes it come across that way. But he's discussing parts of morality which are these deep, biological, primordial aspects of humanity, right? He's not talking about values or moral ideas that come from your personal experience in your lifetime. He's not even talking about cultural ones. He's going right down to the animalistic core of the human, right? In this sense, the reason you like ice cream is because it's fatty and it's sugary and it's a good source of energy and all kinds of nutrients. This is the level we're talking on. And at this level, likes and dislikes, well, they're not just likes and dislikes anymore. They're critical survival instincts. On this level, these particular moral ideas, these really old, evolved ideas, which are so strong that they become needs more than tastes, are an innate component of the human organism. And that's why he's saying, even if you understand that morality does not come from God, that there's no universal objective morality permeating the cosmos, you're still going to have strong moral opinions. You're still going to strongly tend to behave in accordance with your morality. Your morality is still going to have strong overlap with other people's morality, and your morality is still going to be strongly reflective of your biology and your instincts for survival, both for yourself and for your group. And even if you recognize that your moral opinions are ultimately subjective, your brain can and will and must put them on an extreme level of importance because they are extremely important. It's a fundamental aspect of how we survive. So I guess ultimately he and I are on pretty much the same page. I just kind of don't like the way he wrote the article, but it really doesn't matter.
But if that's true, we have no basis for calling hell unjust, that is, in itself.
Justice and morality are not synonymous. Why are you pretending they are? As I said, morality is about how actions correspond to values, basically. But justice is about people getting what they deserve. Have you done nothing to harm anyone? Well, then why should you be harmed? It's not an equivalent response. The severity of the crimes you've committed against others was 0. Why should anything bad happen to you in return? As I understand it, justice is a matter of balance, of fairness. It's not a matter of morality at all. It's more a matter of the equal and opposite reaction. And of course, then you have to figure out what kind of a reaction it is that you consider equal. And there are a lot of gray areas there. There's a lot of space in the middle that's debatable. It can be hard to quantify the severity of one action in relation to another. But again, I think it's quite clear that if you do nothing, specifically you just don't believe a thing, the reaction being infinitely severe is probably over the top. I would consider that unjust pretty much just as a definitional matter, just by what the word means. It's the same thing with the loving God sending people to hell. The only way to make that actually be loving is to completely twist the definition into oblivion, and then you might as well not even have the conversation. But, of course, even more importantly, we're way off in the weeds here. I mean, originally, you were trying to escape talking about hell because you didn't think it went over well with most people. Then you tried to make it seem as if the primary objection is a moral one, which is really not true. And then we had this whole conversation about morality because I just felt like engaging with it even though it was completely irrelevant. And now you're talking about whether hell is just, which is a totally different issue again. I'm sure the carny running the whack-a-mole game really loves you.
Okay, second. So the atheists, they can't even really raise the problem. There is no problem there, right, on their view, at least not a moral problem.
Just get on with it.
Second, though, from a big picture, again, we're looking at the big picture here. Hell isn't a problem. Rather, it's a solution to a problem. Actually, a few problems. Let me show you.
Hell is a solution to a problem. What, a problem that God has? How the hell does an all-powerful God have problems? Why would he need to find solutions? He's the solution. If you got a problem, just make it not be a problem. Not only make there stop being a problem, but make it as if the problem never existed in the first place. You can do it with literally no effort. In fact, just don't make the problem in the first place. If there's a problem, you made the problem, right? You're God, you created everything. Created everything with perfect knowledge and perfect power to create it exactly how you wanted it to be, and there's a problem in it. So why is there a problem? What a weird thing to say.
Hell, or what we're calling final judgment, answers the philosophical problem of evil.
Okay, let me guess. God intentionally creates the universe such that evil and suffering exist. Evil, of course, being an objective reality in your worldview. And then he realizes, wait a minute, there's a philosophical problem of evil here that says, if I'm an all-loving, all-powerful, all-knowing God, why is there evil and suffering in the world? I didn't think about that little gotcha when I did it in the first place. And so his solution is to let there still be evil and suffering in the world, and then to toss not evil people, but just anyone who doesn't believe he exists into hell, thus creating infinitely more suffering than there was in the first place. Problem solved?
What do I mean? The problem of evil is not the problem for Christians that most people think it is. Why?
Well, because you don't really give a shit in the end, do you? You just want to believe in God and have your nice little life and not think about stuff like this.
Because our entire story is about the problem of evil. It starts in chapter 3 of the first book and ends 66 books later. It gets solved 66 books later, right?
Are you asking me? Well then no, not right. And I laid out exactly why in my guess about why you think this is a solution. There's still evil. In the Christian opinion, there's still objective evil. Not only interpersonal evil, people doing bad things to people, but also just natural evil. Terrible suffering. God doing bad things to people. It's all over the place. And then if you think hell is somehow a solution because, hey, yeah, there's evil all over the place in the world, but at least people who do evil to other people get punished in hell, well, no. Non-believers get punished in hell. Because Adam and Eve ate a fucking fruit. But then even worse than that, you're saying that the problem of hell gets solved 66 books later. Of course, that's kind of a weird thing to say because that would mean it gets solved in the book of Revelation, which is supposed to be about the future, you know, when the earth gets destroyed and all that. And you could say, aha, but after all that, there'll be a new heaven and a new earth with no sin, basing it on Revelation 21, which is all well and good, except for the fact that that hasn't happened. There's evil and suffering in the world now, right? And even if that all gets wiped out and replaced with some new world with no sin in it, it doesn't change the fact that there was a world with sin in it. God created a world with evil and sin and suffering, with Satan and hell and all the rest, but he's supposed to still be all-knowing and all good and all loving and all powerful now, so there's still a contradiction. Just because a bad thing doesn't happen forever does not change the fact that the bad thing happened, and of course, even if you have this new heaven and new earth, hell still exists the whole time. People are still burning and suffering down there while the new heaven, new earth people have their big party doing whatever it is they do. I mean, in no way does any of this resolve the problem. Hell, I mean, the problem of evil is a problem even if evil only existed for 1 second, because it's still inconsistent. That 1 second out of the timeline is still contradictory with the nature of the God. And then yet another problem is, if the solution is this new heaven and new earth at the end of Revelation, how was hell the solution? Hell had nothing to do with it. Already this is nonsense all the way down. Now, I'm not saying I think the problem of evil is necessarily the best argument against God or anything like that, but trying to pretend like the existence of hell solves it or the book of Revelation solves it, like, come on, dude. When you say stuff like that, it sounds like you don't even know what the problem of evil is.
But it does get solved.
No, it doesn't. Absolutely nothing in the Bible addresses or solves the problem of evil. Nothing.
Christianity has a lot to say in response to the problem of evil. But in one part of the larger response is that in the end, evil is defeated.
Right, which means that you have not solved the problem of evil because there was evil to be defeated. And of course there is right now, according to you. Seriously, do you even know what this argument is about?
In the end, on the Christian view, evil is defeated. All wrongs will be made right. There will be a day of reckoning.
Hey guys, listen. I know it seems like an omnibenevolent, omnipotent, omniscient God like me should be able to create a universe where evil never exists in the first place. So I know it seems like the universe kind of logically contradicts my existence. I get that. But listen, I promise, someday I'm gonna deal with it. You'll see, it'll be really great. And then my existence won't be contradicted anymore, except by the entire history of the universe before I fixed it. But we're gonna pretend that part didn't happen.
As the hymn writer puts it, this is my Father's world. Oh, let me ne'er forget that though the wrong seems oft so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is my Father's world. The battle is not done.
The problem of evil is not about the end of the battle. The problem of evil is about how there never should have been a start to it. This is such a train wreck.
Jesus who died shall be satisfied, and earth and heaven be one.
Seriously, I'll get to it. It'll be great. But the Golden Girls are on right now, so I gotta go.
So Christians shouldn't be surprised by evil. It's part of our story, and our story isn't over yet. It's not over. There is a day coming when all the evil will finally be judged and defeated.
It's interesting that you describe this as a story, because this whole thing with evil and I made evil and then I'm going to defeat evil, it does sound like God's putting you through something that he just made up to amuse himself, like his version of a novel, which doesn't sound very omnibenevolent.
So first, final judgment answers the problem of evil, but second, it helps explain our existential longing for justice.
Okay, first off, people being sent to hell for not believing in God does not answer the problem of evil. This is unbearably stupid. But also, the fact that you feel like you need some sort of supernatural story to explain why people don't want other people to just treat each other with arbitrary acts of extreme violence, or why they want people who treat other people like shit to get some sort of comeuppance, it's like, do you deal with people? Do you really not understand why, just as a matter of like practical day-to-day quality of life stuff, it's probably a good idea to try to encourage some amount of justice in the world? You see no mundane, boring, pragmatic reason why people might feel that way. That's insane. I mean, what the hell? Honestly, if your religion has poisoned you so badly that you don't even see why people want that, it's kind of mind-blowing how anti-human your entire worldview really is. Alright, I think this is a good place to stop for now. I'm pretty sure I'm going to come back for more of this. Thanks a lot for watching. Please give the video a like and click subscribe if you haven't. Huge thanks to every one of my supporters. People on my email list get early access to videos, list.logicked.com. See you next time.